last week.
We are back, baby. We got another week full of exciting events and news in the political, investing, markets, everything.
I wish that was a thing, a political investing market. Can you imagine how lit that would be? People getting pissed off at politics and happy at gains.
Well, speaking of that, Kalshi just legalized trading on elections in the U.S. For the first time in 100 years, Americans will have access to legal election markets at scale.
Who did?
Kalshi.
Who's Kalshi?
Kalshi. Kalshi
That was like the motto back
is
when...
a prediction market for trading event contracts.
Well, they already have that with Polymarket.
Well,
I know that.
I just
here's
saw
what I'll
this
tell
was
you about
breaking
Polymarket.
news today.
You cannot bet in Polymarket as a U.S. citizen, even though U.S. citizens have put almost $1 billion on the election this year. You have to circumvent it by using either a VPN and or, I don't want to say gambling, betting in crypto, I think is how they do it.
Well, here you go. Kalshi Inc. is an American financial exchange and prediction market offering event contracts. The platform was launched in July of 2021. Kalshi has been described as a potential new competitor for Predict, if I'm saying that correctly, through Kalshi though Kalshi does not currently oversee election contracts.
I've never, ever.
So you're saying it can get lit? Well, it's about to get lit because they're looking at any and all ways to allow the expansion of any kind of betting.
This is the one thing California's behind on. We don't have sports gambling or online gambling or betting legal, minus if it's done in all these loopholes. So you can do prop betting. You do this.
Sure.
Or if you were an Indian and your land got stolen and you have a little bit of it left, you could build a casino.
Yeah.
We didn't steal it, by the way. We took that stuff. But I really don't get how the rules are skewed that way because it doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, well, in this avenue, we'll take it, but we don't want it in this avenue. And then California voters, I mean, shoot, if you want to become a man or a woman and you're 13 years old, freaking go to town. But if you're an adult and you want to gamble, shame on you.
Right? Kind of wild.
A little bit wild on those rules there.
Well, in fact, today on Kalshi, prediction markets are currently showing a 58% chance that this is the final debate before the election.
Oh, if you think that Kamala Harris's camp is going to allow her, the debates.
You
when
think
you listen to this,
the one and done?
She can't do anything where she has to talk, and this has nothing to do with her being a woman, and this has nothing to do with her being Indian. I'm not going to call her black because she's not.
You're correct though.
She is terrible. Anytime she has a thumb worth of pressure on her, she crumbles.
Yeah,
and she just does this stupid thing where I
wonder,
can't believe she does the accent thing and gets away with it.
I was going to say, I wonder what accent she's going to throw into the election or the debate tonight, if any.
That's like me going down to like exactly what I'm going to say. I just shouldn't do
just
that.
Don't say. Let's protect you and the podcast at all costs right now.
I'm trying to think before I speak here. It's going to be a great. I'm very excited for the debate that happened.
It's on ABC tonight. Which
no, it's not tonight.
It is tonight.
Oh, yeah. Not for the podcast, though. Sorry.
It'll be yesterday as you're listening to this.
Yep.
And ABC has shown to give 100% positive coverage to the Kamala campaign and 93% negative coverage to the Trump campaign. So that can tell you a little bit more about why Trump was a little resistant to go on. And he also, I think, is in a lawsuit with George Stopatopoulos or whatever his name is. But he's not moderating tonight.
I thought that it was a different one, so they did.
No.
Okay,
it is. Yep.
I thought he worked at ABC-CBS mixed.
And I know that Trump was even like, why am I going to give them any more viewership and watch time? And yet he didn't want to seem like he was showing any signs of weakness. But I thought it was just very interesting tonight will be fun. I think it'll be fun to watch.
It's going to be epic.
I am very interested to see how Trump shows up. And he's been, at least today, from what I have seen, pushing out a lot of his talking points around just policy. Yeah. Which she, as of I think yesterday, finally put up policy on her website.
6 of them.
And then they are all Biden administration policy, by the way. So nothing different.
Some of them also have contradictory language in them, which is hilarious.
So Trump has kind of been pushing over the last few days just all of his policy, denouncing 2025 over and over and over again because they love to keep kind of beating that same drum.
Yep.
When he has said over and over again, I didn't say that. I am not the founder of it.
How are you gonna believe Kamala Harris? I mean, literally, the thing that blows my mind is far left-leaning voters believe that a non-black person is black because she says she is, but they can't believe somebody saying like, I do not support this, and it's factually done and thought up and pushed by a super PAC called the Heritage Foundation.
Look it up, by the way. It's on their website.
And they've been doing this for a few years. This isn't something that's new.
No.
So
interesting how it kind of got some spotlight and some traction now.
Just like with weird. It's like there's sheeple, dude.
Well, it's election time. So I've been seeing more and more their kind of election playbook, right? Is a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, a lot of lies, a lot of propaganda. And you look at what the left has raised in comparison to Trump's campaign, they've really thrown a bunch of money behind her, and a lot of what they're putting their money towards is honestly
didn't raise any of that money. That money was from the Biden.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's
and
also...
they're putting it to work right now on creating confusion and all kinds of headlines and Russian interference again. I thought it was funny after that kind of mainstream headline continued to come out. Putin actually came out and said, no, we're not, and actually it would be better for Russia if Kamala Harris got elected, so I'm actually endorsing Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just a lot of their narratives continue to get holes poked in them.
And then that one is like, see, he's endorsing Kamala because he's really tricking you. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Right?
Liberals, man, they suck.
RFK, I thought, he's been making some really powerful statements in a way that I think is really helping Trump right now. And it feels more of like a collaborative effort right now that's going on the right against something bigger than just one candidate. It's a machine. It's a party on the left that, I mean, if you think about it, who's been running our country? Because Joe Biden's been on a beach.
Bro, I remember when they used to absolutely beat Trump over the head for going on vacation, and he went on, and I looked it up, about 28% of his presidency was done. It's
higher.
A little higher?
40%.
No. I'm saying Trump.
Oh,
Biden's
sorry.
is almost 41%
correct.
of the presidency.
40.3% on vacation.
He has been on vacation, and they won't say a word about it because it doesn't. It's absolutely wild, man.
Well, and they were suing to get RFK off of the ballots first when he was still running. Now they're suing to keep him on.
He just won his Michigan lawsuit.
He won in Michigan. He also won in North Carolina, so now they're removing him off the ballot.
Well, there's precedent now. So any judge is going to probably be like, hey, my hands are tied. 2 judges have ruled in favor of this. Precedent is set.
Yep, and it was just interesting to hear kind of RFK, the way he's said, and he's really good at his diplomacy and how he talks. And
he's pretty level-headed.
And he said something that I thought was very interesting. There's been an inversion now where the Republican Party has become the party of the common man, of the working people, of the middle class, and the Democratic Party has become the party of Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, big pharma, big ag, big tech, the big banking systems, and the deep state. And when you really start doing your own research, okay, I'm not putting my tinfoil hat on here. When you go and do your research around what corporate donors, what corporate lobbyists, and where the money is actually landing, pretty much what he said in this statement has a lot of validity to it. I'll just say that. You can do your own research, but it's very interesting to see how this party of democracy that is kind of the wolf in sheep's clothing saying they're about democracy and the other side is a threat to democracy now has kind of been outed as the party that somewhat their policies and how they're carrying themselves are actually similar threats to democracy that they're casting stones to the other side saying they're those things themselves.
Yeah, it's a really thing that it's still always blows my mind is, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm fine with moderate politics, but the amount of absolute just blind following with no fact checking, no accountability.
Or even when you do give them fact checking and accountability, it's like
words or violence.
Either words or violence, or they actually will discredit any real facts and just like sweep that under the rug and move back to some emotional stance that they're sticking to versus a factual, logical data point that we're referring to.
Yeah, it's like the only time where in my life where I'm like, is this a simulation? I really like this can't be like.
Well, it's
There's like
just-
common sense is completely out of the like. Come on, like, are you a human being? Like, do you have a brain? Okay, let's do like basic rubbing two brain cells together. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I mean, you've got on one hand a ticket that is for censorship, is lobbying hard and already taken the stance that open borders are okay, and trying to actually legalize many of the illegals that are coming over as replacements for many of the voters that they're losing. And you've seen this kind of in a playbook in many countries that have gone full communist or socialist.
Well, look at Venezuela.
Open borders.
Yeah, Venezuela.
They legalize them. They give them a bunch of things that ultimately sways them to keep the one party in power. And then, I mean, you're seeing it right now with what's going on. I don't know if you've been following what's going on in Brazil.
Oh yeah, I have.
I mean,
saw the protest versus the presidential.
do you see that?
Yeah.
That was wild. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but was it Maduro or Chavez or let me see, hold on.
It started with the
President
judge.
Lula dismissed whom they believe is a criminal who was freed from prison through corruption, and also Judge Alexandre
Yeah.
de Moraes,
Her.
who blocked Elon Musk's ex in Brazil. They had this, and on top of that, they were then, let me see if I can find where that little statement was, but it essentially shows what they were like fining people on a daily basis.
It's $1,000 a day.
So X had to be taken down within 24 hours. App stores had 5 days to comply. It was a $9,000 daily fine if you're using a VPN to try and access the app. And so when you think about, right, just you're aggressively trying to control the narrative in your country. And then if you guys see some of there's, I mean, hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions of people in the streets celebrating free speech and protesting against what this president has done. And then he's at the same day, I think, having his celebration tour or
Yeah, the
like
streets
he's-
are completely empty.
he's in a car going around and waving at nobody. I mean,
Yes.
literally nobody.
Yeah, there was a one section which is obviously like they had like a grandstand of about maybe 1,000 people, and they all were in one area, and it was completely a little North Korea vibes there.
Yeah. So very interesting on that front. But when you just think about the global politics that are going on right now, and you see some of these things being mirrored in other countries, and people are going, why should I care about what's happening over there? Well, because that's what's coming to America next. If it's okay over there, those are things that we talked about precedent. Those are things that we're in a global economic system now. It's not just everybody for themselves, even though we happen to be the superpower. These things are more interconnected and intertwined than I think more people thought, and now are starting to wake up that
and
they
ever
are.
have been. Yeah, and ever have been.
I thought it was funny too, going back to the Russian collusion.
Did you see the one guy that was on CNN like this week where they were talking about Hunter Biden's laptop, and he literally interrupted the CNN host and says, "Yeah, which was real, and by the way, was proven that was real and was pushed as false information by your news network."
Well, yeah, I didn't see that, but I did see that the FBI agent that investigated Trump for quote unquote colluding with the Russians was just sentenced to 4 years in federal prison for colluding with the Russians. So, I mean, you can't make this stuff up.
No, and it's exact. I'm not saying he's perfect and what
No,
everything
no,
does is right,
he's
but he's literally telling you they are literally trying to put me away. They're lying, and everybody's like, "Oh no, that's what." And then this happens, and it's completely ignored.
Yeah. I never thought I'd be, I guess, politicking or
I didn't think I would
or
talk
I
about
guess
politics
be
or
caring
care about
enough,
it as much,
especially supporting a candidate as controversial as he is. Like, it'd be so much easier to be like, this is my guy, and da da da. He's done some stuff that's questionable.
Agreed.
That is,
Everybody
it's
has.
hard to.
Everybody has.
Yeah,
I'm not on my pedestal here to say that I want you to know 100% of everything. It's everybody has things that they would rather be private, and to act like this person's going to lead the country, so they can never have had a mark on their, like, have never done anything wrong. They're not a human being. They don't have human tendencies. It's just weird. People really put people up on a pedestal, and then they act holy like they've never done anything either. It's the hypocrisy to the highest degree.
It really is. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I'm honestly excited for the debate, just to see Trump do what we know Trump's going to do. How aggressive or nice or kind or poised, that's still TBD, dude's wild card. But I think we do know what we're going to get with Kamala Harris, and it's not going to be anything substantial, full of substance, to give people clarity around what she's going to do going forward. So I'm very interested to see how that whole dynamic plays out. I did see that Trump noted he was going to create government efficiency commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government, and Elon Musk said, "I look forward to serving America if the opportunity arises."
Wants no recognition, no salary. He's like, I just want to do it.
Yeah. RFK kind of came out recently and said, a vote for Trump is a vote for me taking on big pharma and making America healthy again, releasing the files of the conspiracies and things around his uncle and his father. So there's some interesting stuff going on, and this is primetime TV right now.
I didn't think this year was going to be the most lit election until Biden dropped out. This makes 2020 look like child's play.
Yeah, it does. Well, to wrap up on a little bit of politics here, to give you guys an idea of net worth before presidency, for the people that consistently keep saying that this particular candidate is out to line their pockets and benefit financially from it, just looking at let's just go back to the facts. Trump's net worth before he was president, $3.7 billion. Obama, $1.3 million. Clinton, $700,000. And Jimmy Carter was $150,000. And this is a little study and report that was done. Estimated net worth as of today, and this is what can be tracked on paper. So again, think about all the creative ways that you can hide money, shell corporations. This is what's been tracked. Trump, $3 billion, so he's down $700 million. Obama, $134 million, so he is up a X essentially. Clinton, $243 million, and Carter, $8.5 million. So I don't know who's corrupt and who isn't, but looking at who's winning financially and who's losing, you might be able to discern where there may be some interesting deals being made that benefit a certain individual and not necessarily the country. So let's move over to what's going on in the markets tomorrow.
CPI tomorrow.
We got CPI inflation. It is, as of last month, came in at 2.9. The expectation on paper is at 2.6. We've got rate cut discussions right around the corner. What are we seeing? What are you hearing? What should we be expecting?
So, a lot to unpack there, but a lot of good stuff.
Yes.
Tomorrow's CPI, which is now jobs reports have taken the helm of the most important, and that was confirmed kind of last week with non-farm. We are now seeing PPI and CPI still be in focus, but mainly just to support the narrative that is being now kind of driven by jobs. Hey, jobs is saying that we don't have runaway unemployment, still looks good for cuts. Kind of the wild thing that we were talking about right before we started the podcast was what the market is pricing in.
Yeah.
And the market is pricing in, I think, a little bit hot and heavy, and I don't want to see that because that's where we get a run, and then we'll get a big pullback when those expectations aren't met. But right now it's pricing in a 50 basis point cut in November and a 50 basis point cut in December. Still a 25 basis point cut, which I'm of the camp that there's going to be a 25 at the first meeting. I don't think they will cut 50 basis points in November because I think that's too much. But I do think that there's a possibility they may cut 50 in December. And as I was texting you earlier this week and this weekend saying, hey, they did it in 2015. They didn't tell anybody, and they raised rates, I believe, back then by 0.5%. Not cut them. I think it was the opposite cycle, but I believe they raised rates by 0.5%. But a rate surprise happened, and it's easy to do because it's literally like 2 weeks before the year ends.
Yep.
Election will have passed by that point, so they can't get, oh, you're doing this to help some political party. I don't think the market's going to ask for a 50 basis point cut in November, nor do I think it's going to need it. I think it's going to be digesting still the 25 basis point cut as the Fed will be.
Okay.
So I think we're getting 75 basis points, I think we're going to get 1% of total cuts by the year's end. We'll for sure get 75 basis points.
Okay.
That's going to be huge.
So that'll put us around 4.25.
That'll put us at
4.5.
If we get a 1%, that'll put us at 4.25 to 4.5. But if we get what the market's pricing in, we'll be at 4%, 4.25 in December, which is like we're at 5.25 right now on the high end versus being at 4.25 on the high end. That's huge.
Yep.
So what does that mean for the stock market? That means that small caps, cyclicals, consumer discretionary, real estate as a whole, physical and fund focused, because that's still physically owned real estate, those are going to be the benefactors. I'm surprised with it being a week away. We saw banks and financial sectors get absolutely smothered today. JP Morgan stock was down by, I believe, at least 5%, or at some time midday, down by 5%.
Mm-hmm.
And that would not be in line with what I would expect, because I think their origination fees would be extremely high for all the new loan products that they'll get out, and they're going to be rewriting already issued business. They're going to rewrite the same debt on a different amortization schedule, essentially. Where I was telling you earlier, where the banks are getting squeezed right now, and really JP Morgan's the only one that's come out and said it, but is on their net interest income. And I think it's because they've been going through this high interest rate cycle, so they're having to pay their depositors higher rates of interest than they are used to paying historically, for at least the past 20 years. But they're still trying to pull really good spreads on their loans that they're not writing a ton of, and they're high interest rates, but they have high interest rates to deal with on their depositors to also match. So their spreads are getting squeezed, and that was really what I think was affecting the banking sector today. Does that mean that all the regionals are in that? I don't think so. But it's very telling, because I thought, and I still think, that industrials and financials are going to be one of the biggest benefactors of the rate cut, because think of all the projects that are stalled out. Thinking of all the projects that want to start but can't.
Yeah, the cost of capital itself is
insane.
The linchpin to so many things being out of alignment or being a green light and moving forward.
So that's where I'm not pulling my hat out of that ring, but it's very interesting today to see tech stocks, which will also be a benefactor, because if you don't think that, how do you think a lot of these tech companies make a lot of money? Look at what NVIDIA announced, a $50 billion stock buyback. You think they're spending $50 billion in cash? Hell no. They're loaning it. That's a loan, y'all. When interest rates are cheaper on those loans, when they can do a pledged asset line against that credit size, that's more profitable to these companies. And I honestly, from the data that I've been getting now, past couple weeks, I think we're still just getting the tail end of this yen unwinding, this yen trade, this carry trade unwinding. It takes a while. I said that a few weeks ago. It takes a while. I was under the impression it was already done. I can't figure out a reason we've had these pullbacks. There's nothing lining up from a data or statistical standpoint. We know rate cuts are coming. We have dovish sentiment from the Fed. We have dovish sentiment from almost all the Fed presidents. Fed chair, not just Fed chair. Why would the market be pulling back on that news instead of like priming up? Because before we got that news, it was flying. It's got to be that carry trade unwinding. And I don't care. There's been a lot of stuff people saying, oh no, that didn't happen. Bitch, it happened. Stop telling me it didn't happen. I have institutions I can literally see have a $150 million line at 0%, and then they're trying to convert that into, and then Bank of Japan surprise and raise interest rates.
That's gonna throw some shit out of whack.
100%.
Yep.
So this is what pisses me off about the big financial media. They're like, oh well, maybe the yen carry trade was actually just a rumor. It's not a rumor at all.
No,
it's completely factually data supported.
Yeah.
So I think we are at the tail end of that, and that is eking its head into this. Here's what I will tell you, and I'll keep on my tangent here. If Trump does as good as I think he's going to do in the debate, watch the crypto market.
Interesting.
Oh, I would not be surprised. That's when
Bitcoin
Bitcoin will get to 100,000. If Trump ggets elected, and you're hearing it from the absolute biggest hater on Bitcoin there could be. Yeah. I don't like Bitcoin, but I also don't like liars. I hate them worse.
Well, and you also know how to foresee, based on certain things happening with policy, how it may impact whether you invest in it or not, whether you're
I own 0 Bitcoin.
Whether you're 100% in on crypto or not. You're also somebody that understands the way these financial tools and instruments and markets work. And with as much emphasis as Trump has put on creating a potentially a Bitcoin-backed financial reserve,
it's gonna fly.
And that makes sense, right?
I mean, like like that one movie where the lady had the thing and was with all the geese, like that beautiful. It will fly. So
So you're not saying to get into Bitcoin, but you're saying
No,
if
but
you do own it or it is something that you're considering.
Let's keep pushing these dominoes down. What is crypto? Very speculative. That's going to show the market that, hey, there's a big risk appetite. You're going to see people pile back into tech stocks. You're going to see people pile back into highly speculative names. Small caps are going to freaking ride to the moon. It's going to be insane. And still, large caps and mid caps will be a benefactor of this. But the beginning of this rally, we haven't even seen a strong bull market rally, and we're in a bull market. I mean, we're up 14, 15% year to date, talking about how the market's weak, and it's a joke. The market's primed to explode, and what it's waiting for is the money supply.
I saw an interesting headline today. I wanted to get your take on it. Ferrari share prices have skyrocketed by 122% since the beginning of 2023 and are trading near their all-time highs. At the same time, Dollar General is down 65% and is close to its 7-year low. Dollar Tree stock is down 53% over this period to its lowest level in 4 years. And kind of the statement, the narrative that was continued to play out on this thread was that a thriving luxury car manufacturer and a struggling discount store essentially summarizes this economic backdrop that we're in right now and the wealth gap continuing to widen. Is this a good example of that? Are these potential signs of that narrative being true?
Narrative, I think, is always going to be true because poor people are typically poor because they're uneducated and they put themselves there through bad decisions or happenstance. They don't really have. Sometimes it's just it's really their
they
background.
Start there, they don't get educated, and they stay there,
and then they buy into.
Some don't start there, but they put themselves there because they're not educated and they don't get educated.
And then typically the people that are wealthy take their wealth and they try to push it forward and continue creating wealth. So when there's wealth already there, you're typically going to create more wealth with it. But when I was talking and I was going through some other reports, the thing that I'm seeing and I've been seeing, it's been the narrative all year, the high-end consumer, so upper middle class and up, has not only thrived in the market that we're in because there's a lot of volatility, which creates opportunity. They're excelling and succeeding at making rates of return that are much better than a typical investor would normally expect. And you flip that on its head and you go look at the lower end, and we're talking about the Dollar General, the Walmart, and that's why you're getting these reports from those retailers. Because I'll do another one. How does Walmart and Dollar General, for this example, say that they're having pullbacks in their spending, and then Nordstrom, American Express, Ferrari are having their best time ever? It's because although it's not the greatest thing, rich people always, or for the most part, get richer, and poor people tend to stay or get poorer because they don't take the time or push the effort forward.
Especially at the opportune times, which is the hardest time to do it in.
Correct. And it's because it's really lack of education. And I'm not talking about going to an Ivy League school, because you could do that and still be an idiot. I know a lot of stupid people that have a much higher level of degrees than I do. Yeah. It's learning things that are actually applicable to an industry that you may be in, or a trade that you're in. Mm-hmm. Yours is real estate. Mine is financial services. We know things, you about my world and mine about yours, even far more so than not even just the typical. It's like the investor that we talk to. I mean, I talk to people all the time, and they think things that are black and white fact and truth, and they're the exact opposite. And it's because they don't have an education or a background to challenge that and teach them that it's not.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do think that's true. I don't think that narrative is ever going to change. The thing that makes me sad is that bottom part stays about the same size. It's almost always the same percentage size of people. And that's funny because it shows you nothing's happening with that subset of group. They just want to be there. They have or maybe they don't want to be there. They're there, they're comfortable, and they don't have any proactive push to get out of it.
Yeah.
And that's an American thing. You take somebody in the same situation in a different country and you put them in America, typically they're going to work themselves into a better lifestyle.
Financial,
correct.
Yeah.
It's laziness.
So interesting.
It's need for self, like immediate gratification.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because they don't have the expectation is not built in that there's not. That
I was just going to say,
worse. That's why we have people that complain about free Palestine.
well, I was going to say, yeah, their paradigm, their perspective, their context around these things
is very skewed.
Very skewed. It's very limited, right? You go throw them in a third world situation where being poor really means life or death on a daily basis, and you throw someone like that into a country with the resources and opportunities like America has around it, damn right they're going to find a way to improve their situation from where they were at before, right?
I mean, look at when we go to Mexico, when we see the people that we see down there. I mean, think about the people. I saw the same people we saw last year when I went this year, and literally Isaac, the dude we met.
Yeah.
He took the money we gave him and he joined a cooking school and he got third place.
Did he really?
He got third. He got an award.
That's fucking awesome.
He got put in a magazine. He has another job now because of it. He showed me the pictures and everything. I was like, holy crap, you actually did it.
That's freaking cool.
And it's just this kid.
And we thought we were just fucking 10
this,
margaritas deep,
we gave this
trying to make a change in this dude's life, and he actually
$450 US. He literally went and paid, and then he got. Not only did he do it, he did it well.
That's
and
cool.
all he wanted. I just need the money for it. I can't afford it.
Yeah.
And that
is,
mindset and attitude doesn't exist here for most people. That's the really big difference when you look at why do these people have the same opportunity that somebody with less can come in and then do something with, but you can't do anything with it because you're deciding that that's where you're comfortable.
It goes back to that kind of cliched statement of the people who succeed are not often the ones with the most resources available to them, but those who are most resourceful. And I can't tell you how many, and you and I both know that there's been plenty of people that we've come across that didn't have shit to start, but they had hunger and they had drive and they had an attitude that was, no matter what, I'm going to make this freaking work.
Think about like Napa, like Grant.
Yeah.
Like our buddy Grant who owns A&R and Reverie and Blue Oak.
I mean, his story is scraping up every penny he possibly can, begging, talking to anybody and everyone,
his friends, working with his friends,
getting declined bank after bank after bank until he gets one person that says yes.
And the way that he did it, and he still makes the wine for that winery today, is he finally went into somebody's place and he said, hey, I will make wine for you for free if you let me make my wine as well. And that person said, you know what? I got nothing to lose, everything to gain. And Grant still makes wine for that winery today.
That's pretty cool.
On the same handshake agreement, and he says he always will until that person is no longer there because that's what got him to where he's going to be. Opportunity exists. You want to know what that person did or any other person did that was in that situation and got through it, is they decided to do the hard thing and take a risk and take a leap and potentially fail and lose everything.
Yeah, I mean,
to pick up the pieces and potentially do it again. You're never going to figure out if it works. You're never going to win a jackpot in a slot machine unless you slide $1 in and pull the handle, right?
Yeah.
Not advocating gambling, but the point being is, if the opportunity is there, you're never going to know if it's obtainable if you don't swing and miss and figure out what you did and try to improve upon that. If you don't fail forward.
Yeah.
So that's a very telling thing, and I think that's an American problem from somebody that's traveled a decent amount, and I've traveled in the past couple years internationally.
We've created a cush situation here in America, and it's starting to backfire a little bit.
It very much is.
Those, I will say, that are remaining hungry and have a healthy level of paranoia around everything that they do are the ones that are always leaning a little bit forward and on the offensive at all times. It's kind of like the way I look at driving is when I'm driving around town, I'm not thinking everybody's out there to kill me and to take me down to zero. No, but at the same time, I'm still got my head on a swivel. Like someone could run a red light on accident. The old lady could freaking sideswipe. I don't know. But you got to always kind of have your head on a swivel. One, for opportunity. Two, for risk. Talking about some interesting risks that could skew decision-making and data going forward. I saw an interesting article today. Is the U.S. labor market data unreliable? We've seen some of the reports come out, and historically, right, they've either been revised up or down a little bit, but pretty drastic over the last year, 800,000.
I don't think they're unreliable. I just think that
Let me give you some context to this, and then I want to get your thought, because it may not be necessarily the issue with who's the data itself. It may be potentially to this point of the data set being much smaller now. And so response rates for key labor market surveys has declined to near historic lows. The current employment survey response rate, also known as non-farm payrolls, is down from 63% in 2012 to 43% in 2024. The current population survey response rate, from which the unemployment rate is calculated, dropped from 90% in 2012 to 7% in 2024. And the survey for job openings has also seen response rates decline to just 33% from 65% a decade ago. So, is there anything to be concerned around how the data we're looking at is impacting what decisions are being made into the market looking forward?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about this with headline and core CPI and the makeup of those formulas, for example, and how maybe a long time ago those were more accurate because of the velocity that those moved in, and now how they lag too much, and that's not really a great metric, and it's like driving forward looking at the rearview mirror.
Yep.
So maybe not something that spot on being the same, meaning it's not maybe the exact same issue, but I think you can equate from that it's antiquated, it's long in the tooth. It's kind of like our financial system needing to get updated a little bit. And when you have things that are old though and people are comfortable with them, that's where they can kind of take advantage of loopholes and things like that. So I would say yes. I think that there's like we could just use Case-Shiller.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like something we already use. We can just make that the focus and say, this used to work, but now it doesn't work. Get off the buggy and go to the car, the horse-drawn buggy and go to the car. I think there's a lot of things, but those systems exist and are still put in place by a lot of institutions because it allows them to skew and manipulate. Why do we use GAAP accounting?
Yeah.
Like, why don't we just have like one style of accounting so everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Well, because the numbers look different, and we can report. We want to give good flowery numbers, so let's give You know what? We're gonna give you accounting numbers, but the second you audit them, they're gonna be completely different.
Yeah.
Why do that?
Yep.
So yeah, when you overcomplicate things, typically it's to hide something. When you undercomplicate things, it's to streamline them. But if you streamline them, people get information and they get data that may go against your narrative.
Yeah.
My opinion is that is what's going on, and that's why the financial system hasn't been updated, or maybe why it took so long to ban Congress members or members of the Senate or the upper government that have insider information from trading on those prior to it being public knowledge. I wonder why that took so long.
Yeah.
Probably the same issue.
Well, as we wrap up, just some quick updates around small business. 452 large companies have now declared bankruptcy year to date, the second highest number in 14 years. This is only below the 466 bankruptcies recorded in 2020 when economic activity was halted by the lockdowns. So we're seeing an interesting shuffle. Any insights or thoughts, opinions around small business? Is just normal cyclical
Inflation
type of stuff based on what's going on in the
Where
economy?
It's just where interest rates are at. Yeah, and it just makes it hard. It makes it especially hard, and it squeezes small businesses because it squeezes from the bottom up when interest rates go up.
Yep. Now, this is one thing that I wanted to get more of your opinion on regarding these potential companies. Car insurance rates, they're skyrocketing, up 95% over the past 10 years, and car insurance companies are minting money. Progressive stock is up over 1,000% in the last decade versus a 241% gain for the S&P 500. Are car insurance companies a potential golden goose to invest in?
No, they're going to get regulated eventually, and that's going to come to an ending. Especially with auto insurance rates and homeowners insurance being a metric of inflation, they're going to
find a way to curb that.
Yeah,
because all it's doing is skewing their data.
Correct. So I think they're going to put a clamp down on that, similar to how they should have, and they still haven't. But with like student loan, the whole reason student loan thing is an issue is because they gave unlimited money to unlimited idiots, and they let them have unlimited revolving debt. So you can't just give away stuff to people that don't deserve it.
Yeah.
So I think what they'll do is they'll say, hey, you can't just keep jacking up rates. The other thing they have to do is the federal government needs to force, if you're going to do business in one state, you got to do it in all. So they can't just let these insurance companies hold states hostage,
which is what they're doing
in California especially, and say, hey, fuck it, we're not going to do business in your state then. And the state says, well, why? Well, because you make it too hard to do business. You need to figure it out.
Mm.
You need to figure it out. It's hard to sell cars in Alaska, and there's a couple dealerships.
Yep.
So figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't like that. It allows for markets to get oversaturated. It allows for price gouging to happen to consumers, and then it forces consumers to have less and less and less options. That's a failure on part of the state. Mr. Laura, our insurance commissioner, not a very good one. He's probably going to get voted out. We need to have a sit down with these insurers and say, hey, just like we did back with the fire insurance back in the 80s when they were not writing any fire insurance anymore in California. What do we got to do? There's a misalignment here. You need to ensure we're the 7th largest economy in the world as a state. So you need to ensure our citizens, but what can we do to make it make sense for you?
Yeah.
You need to do this, and they need to do it. And the problem is in California, we give all our money to fucking things and bad programs, and we throw it down the drain, and when it could get appropriated for things like that and fix things. So I'll get off my stool there, but it needs to go to, we just need to have we need an Elon Musk to come through and clean it up.
Yeah. Well, he said, peace, California, I'm out. I don't even want to try and fix y'all. But knowing that we're in a period of volatility, as we always say, periods of volatility are the best opportunity to make money in.
They're the money makers.
So if you guys haven't taken advantage of a free financial x-ray, reach out to Ryan and his amazing team. I highly suggest you do right now. X-ray to 844-447-1555. In closing news, we are seeing more and more syndicators face legal ramifications, even prison time.
Mm-hmm.
A TikTok syndicator, Teddy Miller, built a social media following and was syndicating his sales pitch: invest in value-add multifamily and reap outsized returns. He faces 290 years in prison. Essentially, this wasn't a syndicator who just had a bad deal and it went sideways because of the market and the economy. This was a fraudster that was taking advantage of the market and essentially utilizing social media to defraud people out of their money. Most of it was tracked to him spending directly on himself. But we're seeing more and more people start to face legal and ramifications for the lack of compliance when it came to their syndication practices. So I did a recent podcast this last Friday around some of the ways that you can bulletproof your investment, some of the things you really need to understand before you make a decision investing in somebody else's deal if you're not going to be the actual active investor yourself that's in the deal, that's driving the deal. Because unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people, I've been involved in one myself, that you trust somebody that they're going to do what you would think legally they need to do, and they don't. And there's definitely some lessons that have been learned. And this is from seasoned investors I know, really smart and wealthy people that have invested and lost their money. And so nobody is right. Investing is the name of the game. It's always going to have a risk, but there are ways that you can mitigate that risk, whether it's mitigating risk in your investment deals, whether it's mitigating risk in going into the market, choosing what vehicles you're going to get into, right? There's ways to play the game at a high level. So be sure to check that podcast out if you haven't listened to that. But just seeing more and more of these headlines coming out. Teddy Miller, the boss, he is officially getting his ass handed to him. And lost the money of 170 investors. So pretty unfortunate. And again, it's bad for the industry as a whole because it puts a black mark and a blemish around everybody that is actually doing good business when you got people acting and operating under this capacity. So we got big debate news going on tonight. We got more market news coming out tomorrow with CPI. We'll have lots of updates, reflections, and thoughts for you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in today.